Welcome back to Econosphere, where we explore the fascinating world of global economics. Today, we're diving into a paradox that's unfolding in one of Europe's most beautiful countries, Portugal. On the surface, everything looks great. Tech conferences are booming, tourism is thriving, and the economy is growing faster than many of its neighbors. But scratch beneath that polished exterior, and you'll find a troubling reality. Portugal's brightest minds are packing their bags and leaving in record numbers. Imagine you're running a bakery that's famous for producing the most talented bakers in town. You invest heavily in training them, teaching them secret recipes and advanced techniques. But here's the catch. Once they're fully trained, they all leave to work at bakeries across the street because those places can pay them double. That's essentially what's happening to Portugal's economy right now. Since 2016, Lisbon has hosted Web Summit, one of Europe's largest technology gatherings. The government rolled out the red carpet, offering generous incentives to position Portugal as a major player in the global tech scene. And in many ways, it worked. The city buzzes with energy during these events, attracting thousands of entrepreneurs, investors, and tech professionals from around the world. But there's an uncomfortable irony here. While international tech talent floods into Portugal for conferences and short-term opportunities, Portuguese tech graduates are simultaneously flooding out of the country in search of better-paying jobs elsewhere. It's like hosting a grand feast while your own family goes hungry. The numbers paint a stark picture. Today, roughly 30% of young Portuguese citizens live abroad permanently. That's nearly 1 in 3 young adults who've decided their future lies somewhere other than their homeland. To put this in perspective, emigration rates haven't been this high since 1973, during the final years of Portugal's authoritarian regime. According to Portugal's Emigration Observatory, out of the country's 10.4 million residents, approximately 850,000 citizens between the ages of 15 and 39 have worked overseas at some point in their lives. This isn't just any demographic we're talking about. This is the economic engine of any nation. These are the people in their prime working years, the ones who should be driving innovation, starting businesses, and building the future. What makes this brain drain particularly concerning is the profile of those leaving. We're not talking about people seeking basic opportunities. We're talking about highly educated professionals with advanced degrees. Portugal has dramatically improved its educational system over the past few decades, producing more university graduates than ever before. But instead of celebrating this achievement, the country watches helplessly as these graduates take their skills to Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States. Think of it this way. Portugal is like a prestigious university that invests millions in world-class facilities and professors, only to see its best graduates immediately transfer to other schools after getting their degrees. The country essentially becomes a training ground for other nations' workforces, a massive transfer of human capital that benefits everyone except Portugal itself. So what's driving this exodus? The answer lies in a fundamental mismatch between what Portugal's economy offers and what its educated workforce needs to thrive. In 2024, the average salary for a single person without children in Portugal was just €16,943, roughly 40% lower than the European Union average. But this isn't just about raw numbers on a paycheck. It reflects deeper structural issues within Portugal's economic framework. The country lacks large, competitive companies that can match the salaries offered by multinational corporations in wealthier European nations. When a Portuguese software engineer can earn twice as much in Berlin or Dublin for doing the same work, the choice becomes painfully obvious. Portugal's productivity puzzle adds another layer to this challenge. Despite having a hard-working population, Portugal ranks among the least productive economies in the European Union. Productivity measures how much economic value each worker creates per hour of labor, and it's one of the most important indicators of economic health. Low productivity means that even if Portuguese workers put in long hours, the economic output per person remains stubbornly low. This productivity gap isn't due to laziness or lack of effort, it's the result of systemic issues. Portuguese businesses often lack access to the latest technology, modern equipment, and efficient processes that could boost worker output. It's like asking someone to dig a foundation with a shovel while their competitors use excavators. No matter how hard the person with the shovel works, they'll never match the productivity of those with better tools. To understand how Portugal reached this point, we need to travel back in time. When Portugal joined the European Economic Community in 1986, less than 20% of working-age adults had completed secondary education. Compare that to the European average of nearly 60%, and you can see the massive educational gap the country faced. This wasn't an accident or a natural phenomenon. It was the direct result of nearly 5 decades of conservative dictatorship that ended in 1974. The authoritarian regime deliberately underinvested in education, viewing an educated population as a potential threat to their control. Keeping people less educated was part of their strategy for maintaining power. For the past 2 decades, Portugal has been working tirelessly to overcome this educational legacy, and they've made impressive progress. But even today, Portugal still has one of the lowest education levels among developed nations. Generational habits die hard. When families have spent decades not prioritizing education due to poverty and lack of opportunities, changing those patterns takes time. High dropout rates continue to plague the system, particularly in rural areas where immediate economic needs often take precedence over long-term educational goals. It's a vicious cycle. Families struggling with poverty need their children to work and contribute to household income, but without education, those children remain trapped in low-paying jobs, perpetuating the cycle for the next generation. Portugal's economic structure also presents challenges. The country relies heavily on sectors that typically offer lower wages and fewer advancement opportunities. Tourism, for instance, consistently ranks as one of Portugal's most significant economic contributors. In 2023 alone, travel and tourism added €52 billion to the economy, representing 19.6% of total economic output. While tourism brings valuable foreign currency and creates jobs, many of these positions are in hospitality, retail, and personal services, sectors that traditionally offer lower wages compared to high-tech, finance, or advanced manufacturing industries that dominate wealthier European economies. The services sector makes up roughly 66% of Portugal's economy, but many of these jobs fall into categories like cleaning, personal care, and basic retail. These roles, while important, don't typically provide the career advancement or salary growth that highly educated workers seek. It's like having an orchestra where most positions are for tambourine players, but all your trained musicians play violin and piano. Portugal's demographic challenges compound these economic issues, creating what economists call a perfect storm of problems. The country faces one of Europe's most severe aging crises. Birth rates continue to decline while life expectancy increases, creating an inverted population pyramid where fewer working-age people support growing numbers of retirees. There's a direct correlation between economic hardship and declining birth rates. Research shows that Portuguese families struggling with poverty are significantly less likely to have multiple children. When people can barely afford to raise the children they have, expanding their families becomes financially impossible. This creates a demographic decline that puts even more strain on economic resources, as fewer workers support growing numbers of dependents. Recognizing these challenges, the Portuguese government launched the Golden Visa program in 2012, designed to attract wealthy foreign investors by offering residency in exchange for significant financial contributions. The concept seems logical: bring in capital, boost economic growth, and create new opportunities for both Portugal and the investors. These investment programs typically require substantial commitments, such as purchasing real estate, creating jobs, or funding development projects. They offer a faster route to residency or citizenship, making them particularly attractive to high-net-worth individuals seeking global mobility or new business opportunities. Immigration to Portugal has grown rapidly over the last 2 decades, with a particularly sharp increase after 2015. While not everyone in Portuguese society embraces this immigration wave, it has become a key driver of labor supply and job growth. When the global financial crisis hit, followed by a sovereign debt crisis, unemployment soared to 17% in 2013. Since then, the rate has dropped below 7%, with immigration helping to stabilize employment levels even as both job availability and labor supply have risen. Portugal also launched the Regressor program to entice emigrants back home, offering returnees a 50% discount on income taxes for 5 years. The program provides financial assistance for relocation, covering expenses like travel, moving belongings, and re-registering professional qualifications, up to approximately €6,500. However, even these incentives face a major obstacle: Portugal's housing affordability crisis. The country is experiencing one of the worst housing crises in the developed world. Since 2013, real housing prices have jumped more than 112%, while average incomes have grown by just 33%. Today, the average home costs between 5 and 6 times the annual gross household income, putting Portugal among the highest in Europe for price-to-income ratios. For middle-class families and young Portuguese workers, homeownership isn't just difficult, it's becoming mathematically impossible. Even a tax-free minimum wage doesn't come close to covering basic housing costs in major cities. Foreign demand has fueled much of this housing surge. The Golden Visa program, tax incentives for non-residents, and Portugal's lifestyle appeal have attracted heavy international investment in real estate. Additionally, short-term tourism rentals have reduced the supply of homes available for long-term residents, particularly in Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve region. It's like a coastal town where all the beachfront properties get bought up by vacation rental companies. The locals who grew up there can no longer afford to live in their own community. They're forced to move further inland while outsiders enjoy the beaches their families have called home for generations. Portugal's economic challenges didn't begin with the recent housing crisis. They trace back to the sovereign debt crisis of 2010. Unlike Spain and Ireland, Portugal didn't experience a dramatic housing boom during the early 2000s. Unlike Greece, it didn't face the same level of unsustainable public debt. And unlike Italy, it avoided significant political instability. Yet all 5 countries found themselves in similar economic crises. Portugal's situation was unique in a troubling way. From 2000 onwards, the country experienced a sharp increase in foreign capital inflows, similar to other European nations. But while that foreign money created economic booms elsewhere, in Portugal it actually triggered economic stagnation. 2 main factors explain this paradox. First, Portugal's underdeveloped financial markets meant that foreign capital didn't flow to the most productive sectors. Instead of funding competitive manufacturing companies that could export globally, the money went to less productive service sector firms. This misallocation of resources caused productivity to decline and made Portuguese goods more expensive compared to international competitors. Second, between 2000 and 2007, the Portuguese government continuously raised taxes to fund generous pension promises made to previous generations. These higher taxes discouraged work and further misallocated economic resources. When the euro crisis hit in 2010, additional tax increases were imposed as part of austerity measures demanded by European authorities and the International Monetary Fund, hitting the economy even harder. By 2014, Portugal had successfully emerged from the severe recession. However, the economy still suffers from chronically low investment levels, which have declined far more dramatically than in other Eurozone countries. This underinvestment is a primary reason behind Portugal's low potential growth rate. Without robust investment in new equipment, technology, and infrastructure, the economy struggles to expand, wages remain stagnant, and productivity stays low. After years of easy credit, Portuguese businesses had poured money into non-tradable sectors, especially construction, instead of manufacturing or exportable goods and services. Today, Portuguese companies face serious constraints when it comes to productive investment. High financing costs make it expensive to expand operations. Regulatory uncertainties create hesitation among business owners. And frankly, there are limited growth opportunities in both domestic and export markets. Even when firms can secure financing for investment projects, many choose to hold back because expected returns aren't attractive enough. It's like having a store full of customers who are browsing but not buying. Why expand your inventory when demand remains weak? Portugal recognizes the need for careful economic policies to avoid jeopardizing their fragile recovery. But minor policy adjustments aren't sufficient. The country needs fundamental structural reforms that reduce the cost of doing business and make investment projects more attractive and profitable. Since 2021, the European Union has been funding Portugal's Recovery and Resilience Plan, a major effort to boost economic recovery and modernize the country's economic structure. The plan focuses on three key areas: building economic resilience, managing climate transition, and advancing digital transformation. While the plan has achieved several important milestones, the path hasn't been entirely smooth. Some funds were temporarily suspended due to missed targets, creating debates about the plan's strategic clarity and success measurements. The EU funding is performance-based. Portugal only receives money when they hit specific targets. This creates accountability but also enormous pressure to deliver results quickly. It's a bold initiative that reflects Europe's broader post-pandemic recovery efforts, but like many ambitious plans, it faces the challenge of translating grand visions into real-world results. In recent years, Portugal has demonstrated remarkable resilience. Despite the shocks of the global pandemic, the country has managed to build a growth trajectory that now exceeds the Eurozone average. Portugal's transformation from one of Western Europe's poorest nations to a modern, service-driven economy represents a significant achievement. Strong fiscal reforms, reduced national debt, and even budget surpluses have laid the foundation for a more stable economic future. Portugal has the potential to continue closing the gap with wealthier European nations, but converting short-term momentum into long-term progress requires addressing fundamental challenges. The country must tackle low productivity through technology adoption and workforce development. The aging demographic crisis needs creative solutions that balance immigration, family support, and economic incentives. Underinvestment in key sectors requires both private sector confidence and public sector strategic planning. Perhaps most critically, Portugal must find ways to retain and attract back its educated workforce. This means creating an ecosystem where highly skilled professionals can find opportunities that match their talents and aspirations. It's not enough to simply offer tax breaks. The country needs to build industries and companies that can compete globally for talent. The clock is ticking. Every year that passes with continued emigration makes the challenge more difficult. Once a generation of talent is lost, rebuilding becomes exponentially harder. It's like trying to restart a symphony orchestra after all the experienced musicians have joined other ensembles. You're left teaching new players from scratch while your competitors perform complex masterpieces. Portugal's story isn't unique in the global economy. Many countries struggle with brain drain, demographic shifts, and the challenge of competing in an increasingly connected world. But Portugal's situation is particularly poignant because the country has made so much progress in education and governance, only to see the fruits of that progress benefit other nations. The ultimate question isn't whether Portugal can solve these problems. With the right policies and sufficient time, most economic challenges can be addressed. The real question is whether Portugal can solve them quickly enough to retain the human capital necessary for long-term prosperity. The answer will shape not just Portugal's future, but also provide valuable lessons for other nations facing similar challenges in our rapidly evolving global economy. Portugal's success or failure in addressing these issues will be watched closely by policymakers, economists, and citizens around the world who recognize that the challenges facing Portugal today may well be the challenges facing their own countries tomorrow. As we continue to monitor this unfolding economic drama, one thing remains clear: the intersection of education, opportunity, and economic policy will determine whether Portugal's brightest minds choose to build their futures at home or continue seeking opportunities abroad. The country stands at a crossroads, and the path chosen will echo through generations to come. Thank you for joining us on Econosphere today. If you found this analysis helpful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest economic trends shaping our world. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of global economics.